So in the previous two live the bike hands that we looked at, I had lost two very large pots.
And the river's a 9. Bill here with top full house, rivers it.
Both of them happened to be against my opponent holding two 9s with a 9 on the river.
Oh, quad 9s versus top full house.
I'm not a huge believer in superstition, but I think our brains naturally look for patterns and want to make sense of things when things are not going well. We look for anything to blame except ourselves. So trying to calm that extra noise in your head when things are not going well can definitely be a challenge. Continuing from that session, Bill Klein started the action and raised the 600. It folded around to me. This time I was in the big blind holding king 9 of clubs, and Garrett was in the third blind behind me. With him being quite active, I think folding or raising probably would have been the better play, but I chose to just call. And he did put another raise to 3,000.
Garrett 3-bets to 3,000.
Bill called the raise, and of course, I called as well.
And Andy and Bill both call.
This is another one in the session where I was given a second chance to get rid of my hand before the cards came out. My position was terrible and my hand wasn't any better. I was in total calling station mode with no plan but to try and flop something big, which probably isn't the best strategy. But somehow the flop came down king 9-5 with two spades, giving me top 2 pair. I went from instantly hating and regretting my pre-flop decision to patting myself on the back. It's always nice to get instantly rewarded for questionable pre-flop decisions.
So Andy here flops top 2. Garrett with a gutter to a queen and a backdoor flush draw.
Garrett bet out 5,000, about half pot. Bill folded, and I thought about just calling to, let him keep the betting lead. But the board was pretty coordinated, and all his draws and strong made hands weren't going anywhere.
Andy's gonna raise.
I raised it to 14,300. I actually remembered the type of mindset I was in. I was hoping that he actually had a combo draw, some type of big draw like ace king of spades, queen 10 of spades, one of those hands that we could somehow just pile it in and just get it over with, But unfortunately, he just called.
Garrett with the backdoor hearts makes the call. Turn now is a 7, which gives Garrett a double gutter. And it would be quite hidden if an 8 were to roll off here.
The turn came in offsuit 7. It looked pretty harmless, unless he had one of the 6-8 suited hands. Obviously, I had to keep betting. All his good bluff catching hands or draws that improved were gonna keep calling. So I bet 24,600.
24,600. Andy bets 24,000.
A quick note, my stack size was off by quite a bit here on the stream. They did make a graphic note of it later on, so I actually had about 100K going to the river. About 60K more than what it said, giving Garrett much more of an incentive to keep calling if he was drawing.
10 seconds.
Garrett gonna make the call here again, and you wonder if Garrett might rep spades if a spade comes. The river's the jack of spades.
The jack of spades came on the river, putting out the third spade. It was a bad river for my hand, especially being first to act. I checked it over.
Check.
So there's the spade. Does it give Garrett enough showdown value where he's just gonna check it back, or is he gonna bluff at it?
So I'm sure by now everyone has heard all the endless strategy talk about balance and how important that is, and this was a spot where having some flushes that I would play this way and check at the end would have been very nice. But in reality, I wasn't doing this often enough, and it was probably pretty obvious that I did not like that river once I checked.
10 seconds. All in?
And he is gonna bluff at it. And Andy folds.
So he piled it in, and I just threw my hand away pretty quickly. I could have probably taken more time here. There was a lot in the middle, but I just had it stuck in my head that there were too many likely hands that were spades that I was losing to, specifically all the ace-x and king-x spades. I just made up my mind on what I was going to do on certain cards, and I couldn't find the hands that I was ahead of, the way the hand played out, and it ended up being the wrong decision. It's difficult to not be results-oriented. I believe long-term, folding out everything that's not a flush here against most people was going to be correct. But it's tough when it's against a player who's naturally going to have way more different hands and way more bluffs here. Plus, it's also especially tricky when that player is also able to recognize when his hand is probably not good enough and is not just going to check. There's far fewer players these days that are going to actually pull the trigger for these amounts. And it ended up just being a great play by him.